All right, welcome everybody to another episode of At Witt's End. I'm Ken. That's Carson. He's 6,000 miles away, 9 hours difference, and not sure what episode this is, which is good. That means we're
So I think it's the Michael
so
Jordan episode 23, I think.
Ooh, look at you! What a tie-in!
I think it's a Jordan episode, yeah,
It's
2023.
the goat
The
episode.
the year of Jordan.
Yeah. Well, this week, last week you've had a interesting week. You did a little traveling, so maybe a little episode of your travel log in Europe. You made a nice trip. Where'd you go this week?
Yeah, so I happened to take 4 nights in Rome, Italy. In the I don't know if it's a province or a territory of Lazio. Is the state where Rome is.
Well, actually, you made a trip to two countries.
Yeah.
So you went to Italy
Pretty
and you went to the
pretty
Vatican.
easy. Yeah, pretty easy second country to visit. Smallest country in the world. Everyone should know that fact.
I can guarantee you they don't.
Yeah, don't.
Most people.
But it should be a known fact. It's a pretty easy one. That the Vatican City is the smallest country in the world. But did you know that A, you don't need a passport to go there? B,
you don't need a
can't
passport to go to Vatican City once you're in Rome.
Yes, correct.
The American flying from Jersey into Italy is going to need a passport.
Yeah, you need to go to you need to get into Italy, but once you're in Italy, you can just get into the Vatican. There's no issues there. You also cannot get a passport stamp, which is unfortunate.
Which I believe when I was there in my younger days, that was a thing to do. You got a stamp at the Vatican. You also had to dress appropriately, which I believe they still do.
Yeah, still do.
No hoochie shorts or wife beater tank tops.
Yeah, I did learn through some pre-travel research that because I was looking at where to go, that the Vatican does issue passports, and they have, I think, under 1,000 citizens. So like something like 800 and something passports, but they, if you no longer live there, they take them away, so you can't be unless you're.
So if somebody has a Vatican passport and a U.S. passport, he's living in the Vatican City like a cardinal or something. Okay.
Yeah. There's very few, so it's obviously very rare, but interestingly, it makes the Vatican City the highest crime rate in the world, with per person. So crime rate per person.
Because I don't know, say there's 100 citizens total, with all the tourists there, probably mostly pickpocketing. There's okay, that makes
a high
sense.
Amount of crime.
When you first said it, I'm going, how does that work? There's no way.
Yeah, it's the highest crime rate in the world because of the low population. It's not. I wouldn't say it's a super high amount of crime or anything, but it's just such a low population, and there's obviously a high amount of tourists that go there.
Well, actually, before you get into the Vatican, let's go back. You went to Rome not just to be a tourist, but because of an athletic event. You wanted to see what?
Yeah. So I like to plan travel around an event, particularly sporting events. I like to go to sporting events places. I think it's a cool way to see the city. And I wanted to see any match in Italy, and I was looking at Champions League in Milan, but decided actually on a Europa League match. So the Europa League is the tournament below the Champions League of club teams in Europe, and so the Europa League AS Roma, which is one of the two Rome clubs in the Italian league, is playing in the Europa League, and they, interestingly enough, were playing Red Bull Salzburg. So they're playing an Austrian team. So kind of interesting.
And probably, I would say, one of the more famous teams because of Red Bull, right? And Salzburg. I mean, Salzburg's tours.
Yeah, they're the biggest team in Austria. They were well, I guess I can say they so Roma won match 2-0, knocking out Salzburg out of the Europa League tournament. Salzburg was unfortunately the last Austrian team in a European tournament, so that's a little sad. But it's never a bad thing to watch Salzburg lose as a fan of a rival team to Salzburg.
Who are
They
you?
don't
What do you mean you're a fan of? Who are you a fan of now?
last the Linz team.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize.
Yeah,
I know you. You know, you're living in Linz. I didn't realize you have become a
I've
Linz
become a
Lask fan.
Lasker.
Lask is the Linz team. For those who don't know, I don't know
Yep.
what does Lask stand for. Lask.
The Linzer Athletic Sporting Club.
What is their mascot?
The black and white.
Oh,
It's just that's yeah. I don't think
it,
they have a mascot.
and they've just built a brand new stadium too. Just
Yeah, which
it
I'm
opened
excited
this
to.
opened what last week?
Yeah, the first game
Okay.
was like a week and a half ago. Yeah.
All right. So not to go
But yeah,
off
so
on a
back
tangent. Back to
back to Roma. So I went to the AS Roma match at the Stadio Olimpico in I think northern Rome. Is
the Olympic
area
Stadium.
it's in. Yeah, the Olympic Stadium from when they hosted. So it's no longer Olympic. There's very few Olympic venues left, and the Olympic Stadium obviously is one. It's just a classic Olympic Coliseum size stadium or type stadium, big. It's the atmosphere is very cool. I mean, it's it's tournament soccer, European level,
Sold out, I
so it's
assume.
important. Yeah, sold out.
Yeah, you had a good
Um,
seat. What was the crowd like?
yeah, so it's funny. I was thinking about this during the game. So the crowd was great. All into the match. Hyper into the match. Cheering back and forth against the Salzburg contingent, small contingent that was there, but contingent.
They had a
That
section I
they were
noticed in the
loud.
stadium. Yeah.
Yeah. They were loud for their size, so that was good. But the one thing I was thinking was that fans at these matches sing constantly, right? You have your chants and everything, right? So, but it's different. So I was thinking, um, the British guys, they just kind of chant at you, like
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
chanting. They're not singing anything, right? They're chanting. Germans are like yelling at you, right? They're not singing or chanting. They're just yelling at you. And then, but the Italians sing at you,
Yeah.
like they sing songs like they're, and there's like a difference between the three of them. So I've been to a Premier League, I've been to Bundesliga, and another European level match in European wide
Well,
match in Germany, and now this Italian
well,
match.
that's why I kind of asked about the crowd because you had posted a video of it as you just got there and they were waving their flags. It wasn't filled up yet, but they were singing, and it may have been the Italian national anthem. I don't know, but it was actually
Mm-mm.
sounded really, really nice.
Yeah, it wasn't the Italian. It was a song for the team. Funny enough, like pregame, all the music they were playing pregame was like American music,
Well, I was going to
and
say,
like
did they sing Neil Diamond's "Sweet Caroline"? I bet
no, they did
no.
not. No, but
John
they
Denver, Country Road.
no. It
No,
was just
dang.
it was just like stadium music that they played like
Okay,
pregame, right? Like
gotcha.
the songs they sing are Italian songs, but like the music in the stadium that's over the loudspeakers is American music. So like Linkin Park was being played in
Oh wow, and it was in
um
Italian.
no, it was all
Oh,
English. It was
oh,
all English, yeah. But it was just all just American, like big American hits, and it was kind of funny. I didn't expect it pre-match. I expected like other things to be getting played, but
and look at
yeah,
that. And
it was
people
stunning
say
music.
America doesn't have culture.
Yeah, and again, not to get into a tangent, but I was telling
Yeah,
people this that America's culture is so ingrained into the rest of
yeah.
Western societies that it doesn't look like America has culture. But you see all this stuff, like all this music and
It's just
TV,
it's
and
so we don't think of
it's
it as new. It's so modern. I mean,
yeah,
when you
yeah.
talk about Rome, you're talking ancient city. So, you know,
But yeah, the Roma match was awesome. And if you didn't know, I think you know who he is because of the Amazon series. But the current Roma head coach is Jose Mourinho.
Oh,
He's
I
the
haven't. Yeah, it's been a while
he's
since I've watched a soccer series on Netflix, but they are entertaining, similar to Drive to Survive with F1.
yeah.
I
This is
love the
a
Euro
Amazon one.
sports shows.
Yeah, this was an Amazon one that he was on last. And yeah, now he's the Roma
Who
coach.
was he
But
coaching before?
Mourinho was where was Mourinho before
Uh,
this?
yeah. So
Yeah,
overall,
I
the
don't remember.
the match was entertaining. It's what you expected to be. How was the food?
At the match,
Yeah.
um, I, hot dogs.
Oh,
I mean,
so it's
were
typical
that
stadium food.
yeah, stadium food, but like they had paninis.
Yeah.
But they're
Beer.
he was at Tottenham last, by the way.
Oh.
But their I think their defining thing was they had a lot of good looking coffee. I'm not a coffee
Oh.
drinker, so I didn't have any.
Yeah.
But they
I
had
can see
good
that.
good looking coffee there.
Espresso,
Um,
cappuccinos.
yeah. Yeah, and beer and everything. The normal stadium food. Nothing overly unique. I think the coffee was the most unique thing, just because it was probably pretty good. And I
Yeah,
saw
I
a lot of
just
people drinking it.
like the matches you went to in Britain. I just picture people downing beers in Italy. I just don't picture that.
Well,
So
yeah. In England, the matches I've been to there, the experience has been different. It's a different level. Like Stadio Olimpico is a little older. It's more just simple. Like there wasn't a lot to it, and it was mostly just about the match. Where like at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, at the Etihad in Manchester, those are
sweets and
they have
corporate stuff.
yeah, suites and corporates and clubs, really good food, and like they're a large like event, like in the stadium themselves are an experience,
So was
alongside
the
the
Stadium Olympia? Was that fairly old, kind of run down? What were the?
no, I
Did
mean
you use
it's
the restrooms? That's always the key thing.
yeah, I mean it was all fine. There was nothing
Okay.
it was I think it's from the 80s was when it was
Yeah.
built, so it's not super old, but
Yeah, but
um
old for a American sports stadium,
yeah,
but not for a European. So
yeah, but yeah, so the Roman match was good. I don't really want to talk about because everyone does the normal things, but I did the Coliseum. Coliseum is epic, always definitely worth going. It's they're continuing to rebuild it um, and not rebuild, but um, put it back to in some ways what it was using um,
yeah,
recreate what it was. So they're continuing that, and it's very cool. They're also doing a lot of construction outside to make like getting there a little bit easier. I think the Roman Forum, cool seeing really old stuff like that. It's just
just see any
statues
blood
and
from the gladiators?
no gladiator
Oh
blood.
dang! All right. Did you go
I
down
did
into
learn.
the?
Yeah, I went into the pit, but I didn't go into the basements. Two things I thought were most interesting was um, the elevators. The elevators are wild. They have a lot of elevators um, at the on the floor, so
For
they would
what?
lift stuff from the
Oh,
basement down up to the fighting level. They would lift like gladiators or
in ancient times.
animals. Yeah. These
So
are
it's a
like
pulley
ancient
system they
elevators.
would use because obviously they didn't
Yeah,
have hydraulics or
counter
electricity.
counterweights.
Counterweights.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then you can actually see because the counterweights are like a white stone, so you can actually see the counterweights still
Like a
there,
marble.
the
Huh.
original white stones. But the other very interesting thing that I didn't know, they used to have water combat in the Coliseum. So they did it like 3 or 4 times, and they filled the Coliseum, like the fighting pit, with water, and they would do naval, small scale but naval combat in the Coliseum.
Like a naval
Um,
combat show.
yeah. Like instead of gladiators on foot, they were on water, and you're fighting in the water. So
It's weird that you that hasn't been portrayed in anything in a movie. That would be interesting, and I
yeah,
think most people would think you were joking when you told them about it. And I don't. I've been to Rome before, but it's been decades, and I don't remember that. So I would love to see
Yes,
that, or I've got to look it up and see if there's a rendition of a painting or something.
there are paintings and like maps or like images, not images, but like
Yeah,
recreations of what it would look like. Yeah, and they only did it like 3 or 4 times, and then they built other venues specifically for the
somebody
water
needs to do
combat.
a movie of the greatest Roman naval gladiator.
Naval
So,
gladiator. Yeah, so Roman Forum was very cool. Um, I did the Pantheon. I mean, the building is just like so it's surrounded by somewhat modern buildings, like modern as in they're from the 20th 21st century,
yeah.
um and it's just this big dome with these massive columns, and the scale of it is just, and it's just in the middle of this city and still standing and still looks beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's what
um
when you were there, you basically said that you were shocked by the size, the
well,
mass of
that was
everything.
for something else.
Well, in
The
general,
Pantheon.
yeah.
Yeah, the Pantheon in general, just the scale of it, and this is the thing I found out. The ancient Romans had these just massive buildings, because there was a cool map I saw when I was walking along where the Roman Forum and the Colosseum areas that shows the buildings that were there in ancient times
Hmm.
when the emperors built them, and the scale of them was just immense on this map, and obviously none of it's there anymore, but the scale of what they were overlaid to the modern city. Like, I was standing in the middle of it's like a 6 lane road that goes right through the all the ruins and everything, and it just like the road was just like half of the building, and then there were other massive buildings like right around all this stuff. So the scale they built out was immense
Well,
and pretty incredible.
and you think about the engineering and the reach of the Roman Empire, it's staggering. I mean,
Well,
into the
and
UK and
yeah, and we were talking about this actually at work today. The Roman Empire, and the ancient Romans were super technologically advanced. They had great education, philosophy.
Mhm.
Like, they were they were advancing so much, and it's unfortunate to say, but the uh, the Pope and like the Vatican City kind of ended all that, right? So when they transitioned um like multi-god religious, and not saying that like this religious transition was the cause of it, but they
Kind of from
transitioned right to
secularism to
from
Catholicism and government.
paganism
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Christian faith. So multi-god to single god faith, right? So when they transitioned to that, and the Pope and the rise of the church came, what I learned was that the Pope took down a lot of the ancient Roman stuff because they wanted the marble and all the stuff to
Right,
build up the churches buildings,
right.
right? And so they took all that, basically destroyed a lot of ancient Rome, and then with that, with the fall of those empires, the ancient Roman empires and the rise of the Pope and the Church, it took the world into like the Dark Ages, where this advancements in technology and education, engineering, philosophy kind of stopped for a pretty long time.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, the Dark Ages were, you know,
There was a
it
fear
wasn't.
that technology advancement
Yeah.
was taking away from the religious, spiritual love of God. You know,
Yeah, and
yeah,
this was all, the Pope and the Church just kind of stopping this, and I'd be, it's something to just completely imagine is what would have happened if the empire continued, like, not continued to modern
yeah.
day, but for a lot more number
It's
more
kind of
years.
weird. It's like those shows. What if? It would be
Yeah.
great to see a show about what if, but on the other side, you look at the Pope, Catholicism, and what it saved. Nobody really knows, but the archives and museums. Well, you went through the museums, but the archives, what the Catholic Church has. I don't think they know what they
Yeah.
have. I mean, they destroyed a lot, but they saved a lot. So there's this duplicity of philosophy, and it's
When
weird.
and yeah, and you talked about it, and it's actually something I've seen a lot on TikTok recently, and the church, as well as like the primary example that's all over TikTok is the British Museum. And
Yeah.
right, these entities, these museums from colonial countries that preserve antiquities, took them back,
Hmm.
preserved antiquities, right? And there's this trend of kind of wanting to give back the antiquities to the countries they were from, right? It makes sense, right? And a lot of them are primarily from the Middle East, India,
Egypt.
um,
Yeah.
Egypt. Yeah, the Middle East is kind of the primary source of a lot of these antiquities, especially Egypt. Um,
But
and
before you blame
there's
America,
well,
America is
well,
not
let me,
colonialist. It is
yeah,
the English.
yeah, and yeah, primarily looking at European colonialists
Yeah.
in this, and
French, English, Dutch.
there's this idea to bring it back, and it, it's kind of spread around, give this stuff back, right? But recently on TikTok, and especially I can't remember the creator, but there's this one guy who talks about how, yeah, I believe he's a Muslim or an Indian guy. But he talks about how, and you've mentioned it too, a lot of the people in these countries are destroying the relics that are in
Hmm.
their countries, right? And there's many videos of ISIS like destroying ancient
Temples.
statues,
Yeah.
temples, um, going through the famous sites in Syria that ancient ruins, and just destroying it, collapsing tombs,
Yeah. Yeah.
destroying everything, right? And
Grave robbers stealing
if
things so they
if
could
you were to give
sell. Yeah.
yeah, if you were to give back, and yeah, a lot of jewels from Egypt, a lot of the stuff from Egypt that the British Museum has, if it wasn't for those people
They'd have
from the
been
British
gone.
Museum, it would have been just looted and split up, melted, sold off, all the gems and the gold, and so it's this like thing of, yeah, it's kind of bad to take stuff from countries, right? But if they didn't, a
It would
lot
have
of
been
this
gone.
stuff may not be here anymore.
Yeah.
Just like the church and the Pope did back way back when. And now,
Yeah.
like you're saying, they've kind of
Well, if
accounted for it by
the
getting more stuff.
modern mentality of the Catholic Church was back during that time, because now the Catholic Church preserves, archives
Yeah,
everything. If they'd have done that back then, yeah, it would have been great. But
yeah,
it's hard for someone in modern times. That's why when people criticize colonialism or what the church did, you you, you have to place yourself back in that time, you know. But
yeah.
getting back to your tour of Rome,
Yeah, so back to Rome. I stayed near for the first couple nights near the Spanish Steps, on Via de Candidi. They
which
say
we
is
had
like the richest.
discussions on. So I think you need to. Americans have heard of the Spanish Steps. I remember.
Yeah,
Who the 49 quarterback Joe Montana being at the top of the Spanish Steps, and everybody just says Spanish Steps. What's the big
that's
deal?
yeah. So only in English are they called the Spanish Steps.
Mm.
That is, and it's not a translation, right? So and there's not really uh, where this comes from. Um, they think it's because a poet lived there. I'm trying to pull up the
Well, I think it's also the movies with, and I'm not a movie buff, but I think Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant. It's more significant for, I think, us than it's kind of like the Sound of Music in Austria.
yeah. But it's so in English they're called the Spanish Steps, right? It's only in English they called it. Every other language, so their name is this. I'm gonna butcher this, but the Scalinata della Trinita de Monti, right?
You got to give
And
it
that
this
is
too.
yeah, that is their like official name, and every other language translates that name except for English. English calls them the Spanish Step.
So I
Um,
assume you walk the Spanish Steps.
yeah, I mean, I went
What
up
are
there a
there, like
couple
100 or
times.
something like that? It
Uh,
goes from a church to a church.
no, it goes
So
from the Piazza di Spagna to the church. They just wanted
at the
to
top,
connect the
yeah.
bottom to the church that's at the top. Yeah.
So out of all the tourists there, I would assume mostly American, English.
No. A
Oh,
lot of
okay.
Americans, but you
So
know,
Italians hang out
tourists
there
from
too.
everywhere. Yeah,
Okay.
Italians, Spanish, Middle Eastern, African. I saw every. Rome is one of those places where tourists from all over the world go.
Yeah.
Northern Europeans,
So would you
Eastern
say,
Europeans.
and your first, you stayed in two hotels, your first hotel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the inn at the
Just so you
Spanish
know,
Steps.
Carson may be a student traveler, but he is not staying in
I
hostels.
do it for reasons. I have my reasons, but I like to switch hotels when I go to cities to stay in a different part of the city. I think it's kind of cool. But I stayed at the inn at the Spanish Steps, which was great. Um, Somehow ended up with like a one bedroom apartment on this alleyway in the neighborhood below the Spanish Steps.
And I think
Um,
we need to explain a lot of hotels we've stayed at in Europe. You know, you think you're staying in one building, but especially in older cities, many hotels are
our,
split up. Could be
yeah,
five different buildings. You
this
know,
was seven.
so
This hotel.
so you had a room that was basically an apartment in another building.
Yeah, yeah. So it was good. The service was good. The location was great. It's a very touristy area, so it made sense. And it was my first time in the city, so I want to be in a touristy area. I, it's you got to see the main sites, right? So, great location. Trevi Fountain was nearby.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
the Trevi Fountain and the Spanish Steps. The Spanish Steps are a little bit boring, to be honest. They're
well,
kind of
there's
just stairs.
steps. Yeah,
Yeah, the Trevi Fountain is pretty incredible, but and like it looks incredible, but the craziness around it, as far as tourists are, is kind of too much.
really.
There's just too many people. There's those really goofy
More than
tourist
Steffen's
shops.
plots on a weekend, holiday weekend.
Well, I mean, it's not as big, but yeah, it's
Okay.
harder to move around, and they have all those little tourist shops and the tourist restaurants and all that kind of stuff.
Is that where
It's
you
just
bought your
so crazy.
mandatory magnet?
No, I got my magnet off a street vendor nearby my hotel at the Spanish Steps, and
Yeah,
then
for you
one at
listeners, Carson's mandatory tourist find in every location is
in
a
every city.
refrigerator magnet.
Yeah, it's just a little small thing. Actually, Rome had the cheapest magnets of any city I've been to. I
Wow.
paid €1 for
Wow. That
the
is pretty
magnets.
good.
Yeah,
I'm surprised you
every
didn't buy a
every
few.
every street vendor. I did buy two actually.
Oh, wait.
And I bought one.
Did you buy a scarf at
I
the
did.
soccer game? Okay.
Let me get it real quick.
How much was that? Okay, for you those listening,
It was
Carson
an
rolled away.
official. Yeah, it rolled away. It was an official team scarf. I didn't buy one from a street vendor, but it's just like
So that was in the
USC
stadium.
colors.
God, it looks like a. Let me get my
It's
glasses
a
on.
yes,
Looks like a
USC
Redskins. Oh, USC, yeah.
Redskins,
Wait, you know what that looks
Gryffindor.
like? It looks like a USC or a Redskins fan that has a Dodge. What's the high end motor? You
A
know what?
Ram,
No, not the Dodge
Challenger,
cars.
Challenger,
No, when they
Charger,
the spe-
Hellcat.
Hellcat. Kind of
Yeah,
looks like the Hellcat logo, but it's a wolf, right?
yeah, it's a wolf. Yeah.
Okay.
Um. Yeah. So that's an aside. We'll get back to the. Where were we?
Oh,
Oh,
we're
magnets. Yeah.
magnets in
Yes.
Rome.
So I got two €1 magnets. One I saw like my last day, and I was like, "That's kind of cool," and I grabbed it. The other one I got was not a Rome one; it was a Vatican City one. But I bought it in the Vatican.
Bless you.
Yes, it
It's
is a
holy.
holy
It's a holy
magnet.
magnet.
It doesn't have holes in it, but it's holy. And I bought it. Yeah, in the Vatican. It was more expensive. I think it was like €6. So
Yeah,
yeah,
got to tilt to the
unfortunate.
church.
Yeah, it was my money that I gave to the church. I just got something in return. But I do like, as I kind of want to wrap up. We've been talking about wrap up this conversation. Because yeah, I mean, there's two things I wanted to talk about. So first, with the Vatican, I should have mentioned this earlier, but you talked about I was impressed with the scale of the Pantheon, right? But it was truly the Vatican scale. So the
Yeah.
basilica specifically, right? So I told you this on the phone. The basilica, when you walk in it, I immediately was like, I am in Lord of the Rings in a fictional show you know, in some empire's palace in Lord of the Rings, because the scale of this place was beyond what I thought it would be. It's bigger on the
Hmm.
inside than it looks on the outside, at least for what I thought. It it just I expected it to be
A
not too
cathedral like
much
all
a
the others.
cathedral, but not too much bigger than
Stephen's
because
Dome,
yeah, I'm near two pretty big ones in Austria, right? Stephen's Dome, and then here in Linz we have a very large one as well.
which
They're
is and
both
it's
very
gorgeous.
large churches, but the Basilica St. Peter's Basilica is just on another level. Like I don't know of a building in the world I could compare it to.
Well,
Like
if you had been
nothing
to the
as far as like
mosque, yeah,
yeah,
Er,
and
er,
I have been to, right.
yeah.
So maybe like the Taj Mahal or certain mosques in the Middle East, definitely.
Well,
Like I
like
could see.
ours in the states, like the National Cathedral doesn't even compare.
Uh,
Um, and you got to
and I've been
remember,
to the National Cathedral.
yeah, but the way people are critical of the church and everything, but the one thing you got to give it to them, they built churches to glorify God, and the architecture, the engineering, the size. I mean, you walk into the basilica and it's breathtaking.
I mean, as much as they say live within your means,
Yeah,
it's a
not no,
common theme with the church.
yeah,
It's just the absolute opposite when it comes to their buildings. It's
yeah.
crazy, like the
Poverty may get you
scale.
into heaven, but that's because they're building gorgeous cathedrals to
It's
glorify
just
God.
and they're
So
gold and the stone and the floor. It's just like whoa.
yeah, yeah.
So that's the thought I had. That's my last thought on the Vatican. Also,
But
the amount of
what?
people in the museums, insane.
Yeah,
Too many
insane.
people.
The museums are spectacular, but you also, I think, for people who are going, did you need tickets for the Vatican? No.
For the museum, you do,
The
yeah,
museum, yeah,
but
museums
not
you
to
do.
just
So
walk into
what?
the main
You tried to
square.
go to the um, what's the
Villa
estate?
Borghese.
Yeah, that you
Borghese.
need tickets for in advance.
I couldn't get it. I couldn't get
Yeah.
any when I needed. Yeah, most of
So
the stuff, most of the attractions in Rome, the big stuff that you need tickets for, you have to get in advance
right,
because they will sell out, or you get stuck with a
waiting in
dude
line.
like, well, not waiting in line necessarily, but like a dude coming up to you like, "Hey, there's no tickets left. You want to buy into my tour?" And then you pay for
Yeah,
a guided tour for €60 just to get into the venue instead of
it,
like the
it,
€17 ticket.
and I think you pointed out they were a pain in the ass in the museums because they block everything.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
hard to
it's
go
rather
through.
annoying. The
But
Colosseum guided tour is not bad, but in the like the confined space of like the museum at the
well,
Vatican, it was so
talking
horrible.
about that, what is one of the favorite things we like? It is touristy. Did you see any? The on-off bus.
The big boosters. No, I
What?
did not. I
No.
did not go on
See?
one. I did see them,
Okay.
but I did not go on them. No.
Yeah.
Um, and then I did want to bring up. So I did. This is something I really was excited for. Um, I did a food tour of
Oh, that's
Rome.
right. I think this
Right.
is definitely something you need to tell people about.
Yeah. So I did a Roman food tour. Um, and I actually happened to be in the neighborhood of my second hotel, which is the Prati neighborhood, which the tour guide actually described very well. It is the ugly rich neighborhood, so it is close to the old town. It's close to the Vatican, but it is just ugly. Like there is no prettiness in
Well,
Prati.
it's utilitarian looking, kind of that
It's just
'70s no architecture, flat
It's just
apartments.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just ugly, but it's just so close to these major
But
areas of Rome that it's expensive.
before you get into the future, I wanted you to talk about that because people who've never been are looking at hotels. Your hotel was fantastic on the inside.
Yes,
From the outside,
it was
we
a
looked
nice
this.
office building. It was just a
Yeah, it
very
looked
clean
like
office
a
building.
drab office building.
Yeah,
So
so I stayed at Mama Shelter Roma. It's a French hotel chain. They have a few internationally, including one in the U.S. that's in Los Angeles. The hotel was incredible.
yeah,
Or I shouldn't say incredible. The hotel was very nice for what it was.
for the money,
The the brunch buffet was incredible.
which you have to
And
pay
the
for.
rooms are clean. Yeah, yeah. But an incredible Italian brunch buffet. something else, but not part of the food tour. But yeah, nothing but praise for Mama Shelter. I'd stay at their hotels if they're anything like that one. I'd stay at their hotels anywhere. But yeah,
Food
so back
tour.
to the food tour, right? So it's they did it. She did it in the Prati neighborhood. Um, we started at this little. It's called Cafe Nokia. No, Nocia. It was just it was. I think it was basically set up to kind of support the or be a part of the food tours, but it's just this little like wine and meat and cheese tasting cafe, and they also sell like you know
Olive oil and
yeah olive
yeah.
oil and balsamic and everything. Um, I was pretty so they served a wine meat and cheese tray or wine with meat and cheese tray and some veggies and stuff. I was pretty blown away by like how it tasted compared to like what I know. So mainly the pesto was incredible. Like it was very fresh. Um
You're
I
becoming a
was like
food snob.
shocked. No, I mean it's not something I would eat every day, but it was
Yeah.
just incredibly fresh. It was so different. Like you could taste the individual ingredients in the pesto. They did have a sun-dried tomato pesto, which kind of combined all the ingredients into one. You couldn't as, but like the traditional pesto, like you could taste each individual thing, and it was a very strong flavor. Um, they had a mozzarella, and it
One of the
was
best cheeses.
oh incredible. They get it shipped in daily from uh, whatever farm they use. It comes in daily, and it was super fresh. Like the mozzarella milk
Did you notice
was
a difference between
flowing.
the mozzarella you've had in the States or in
Oh,
Austria? Really?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It is
More
super
flavorful
good.
and
Yeah. They had a few cheeses, including a really good Parmesan, like that was way different than any Parmesan I've. It was a much thicker slice. It was, I think, the thickest slice of Parmesan I've ever had.
really?
Because I usually have like very thinly sliced
Yeah, I
Parmesan
mean
or
you
like
shave
the
it
little
for everything.
shavings,
Yeah.
but this was like a thick slice of Parmesan.
That doesn't sound
But they
good.
also well, it's tasty because they put a drop of balsamic on it. And I was telling you about the balsamic. So balsamic is the remnants of winemaking, essentially the last of the grapes, and they put
Mm.
it in barrels and they let it just I don't know exactly what the
Ferment,
process does, but
whatever.
it just
Yeah.
goes down to nothing, right? And so they'll start with like 100 liters of grapes, and it'll end up with 3 or 4 liters of balsamic at the end. And it can age for different years. So they had a 10-year age, a 20-year age, and we got a 30-year age. Again, just like the pesto, this stuff was so different than balsamic I know, and it was extremely flavorful, extremely strong flavor, but very good. And with like the parmesan, and they had a little um arugula with it. It was fantastic. And then they had a for sale.
Yeah.
They didn't. It's not cracked open, but they had a 100-year aged
So it's like bourbon
balsamic.
kind of thing.
Yeah, 100-year aged, where the guy that put it in the barrel did not see it come out of the barrel.
Yeah.
Right. So crazy, and there was like €1,000 for this balsamic.
So that said, if you had unlimited or you're very affluent, say you're an F1 driver and you're in Rome doing that food tour,
Yep.
would you buy or use the 100-year-old? I mean, is there that much of a difference between a 20-year and a?
No, it's a collector's item.
So
I
did
would.
you
It's
taste a difference though?
I didn't. We didn't try the 1,000 or
Well,
100-year-old, the
okay,
thousand year old one.
what you tried, like the 30-year-old or
Just a
something?
30-year. Yeah.
Was there a
I
difference between that one and I don't know the one
just a
off the
balsamic
shelf?
you get at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just different. Like it is. I didn't know. I guess true balsamic. That's what it kind of
So,
was.
like I said, you're becoming a foodie. You're knowing, educating
Well,
yourself.
it's just educating. Like, and
Yeah.
she teaches you about like how they have to like certain wineries. So when they talk about the wine and the balsamic, like food places, cheese, they get labeled. by the quality and the length they've been producing. So there's like labels that you can check on the bottles of wine, on the
Well, I assume there's
slices of
appellations there too.
cheese.
Yeah.
But it's just like you have to be like, for a certain label, you have to be in production for more than 10 years, and there's a standard that you have to live by, and the ingredients have to come from a
Hmm.
certain area, stuff like that. So they get labeled. But that was the first stop on the food tour. So the second stop was at a place uh, opened by who I guess was nicknamed the Michelangelo of pizza. It's called Bonchi. Again in the Prati neighborhood. There's other ones in New York and Miami, I think. And it's the Rome one is the original. But it's just street pizza in Rome. Um, Incredible. Also, I'll start with that. It's incredible. Various toppings, like not the standard toppings you would expect. Like they had potatoes. They had which was my favorite, like a mushroom and sausage and onion, but with like different kind of mushrooms. It was just very good.
Any
And they
corn?
were
Don't they
covered.
put corn on it
Yeah, they
in
put corn on a
Austria?
pizza. Yeah, on
Yeah.
every pizza in Austria. It's kind of annoying. No corn there. But I want to say, so the pizza was great. I could talk about it for a while, but I'll just say the pizza was great. Bonci is there some Bonci. But I did want to point out that it's kind of cool, and I mentioned this to you on the phone that um, the way they sell it to you. So they're rectangular pizzas on the
Oh,
counter,
yeah.
and the servers have a pair of scissors with them. And you tell them what pizza you want. You point at the pizza, and they put the scissors and they start moving down the pizza. And then
Like
when you
buying
tell them to stop,
fabric.
yeah, they cut the pizza there. And every pizza is sold by the weight in Rome. Like that's how they sell
So
pizza.
you
Is by
saw
the
that in
weight.
other places too, not just at
Yeah,
this
yeah,
restaurant.
not just
Okay.
this place. Yeah, it's a standard practice. So they cut the pizza and they sell it by the weight. So it doesn't matter. The toppings don't matter. It's the weight of the
The way
pizza.
to.
So if you have less toppings, so say it's just a margarita pizza, you'll get a larger slice of the same weight, or for the same price, you would get a smaller price with more toppings of a different pizza. So it's kind of a cool way to do things. I kind of like it.
Be kind of a cool
But
thing to do here in the States. Just
yeah, it's unique.
experience. Yeah.
It's um, then we went to a I guess like a street food. It was in a restaurant, but it's like a street food, but it's like a pizza cone, I guess. So they take a focaccia bread and they make it into a cone. And they don't really put pizza in it, but they have various fillings you can put in. I had this like chicken and garlic pesto filling. Essentially is a sandwich in a cone with focaccia bread and whatever filling you want. They had like a
Kind of like
meatball
a pita
filling.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, a meatball cone. They had a beef tongue. They had like a
Did you have the tongue?
lasagna. I did not, but one of the other participants on the tour had the tongue. He said it was
Oh,
very
and
good.
yeah, just so uh, the demographics of the other people. I'm assuming.
American, only
Okay.
American.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that was yeah. It was very good. It was basically street food. It's not a panini. Like a panini is very standard
Yeah.
street food in Italy. This is not a panini, but it's pretty similar. It's just not pressed, essentially. But it could be very comparable to a panini. They use focaccia bread too instead of um,
Pizza dough.
panini
Yeah.
bread. But yeah, so then I think that was the first three, and then we ended at a very cool restaurant, and it really showed that it was a good local restaurant because when we walked in, you walk we walked all the way through the back to get it to our table. Only Italian families, and I mean families with little kids and parents, big groups of families,
Did they
old
look up and
people.
stare at you like, here's a bunch of Americans?
They did, but actually, the old man smiled at me, and I smiled back. It was cool. They were. He was like eating his food. He looked up, saw some people walking in, and he smiled at me, and I smiled back, and it was
Yeah.
kind of nice. I didn't expect it from an Italian. Like I think he just assumed. But I was like, wow, okay, it's probably pretty good. Um, and they're known for their homemade pasta. So they hand make their pasta, and it's all homemade. I had a gnocchi, a very good like creamy gnocchi,
Yeah.
and
Oh, your mom would like
I
that.
I was like surprised. I like to get gnocchi. I think it's very good. I get it pretty not often, but I will
Yeah,
definitely
I'm not
get
a fan.
gnocchi.
It's okay.
Um, and usually gnocchi's like heavy as potato, right? It's a
Yeah, it's
potato
doughy and
pasta kind of thing. It's doughy, and it's a heavy food, and you can't eat a lot of it because it's very filling. This was pretty light. I was pretty shocked at like comparably to other gnocchis how light it was, and it was fantastic. The texture and it was just a very good gnocchi. And then the topping of it all, a dessert that I know you like very much, tiramisu. So Rome famous for their tiramisu. They have a again at this restaurant, which was a Pinocchio themed restaurant, and it had a good backstory to the restaurant, but I don't remember it in full, so I won't go into it. But the restaurant was Pinocchio themed, so they had a
do
lot
you
of
remember the
Pinocchio
name of
pictures
it?
on the wall.
Pinocchio's or
I kept a business card of it, but it's in my
lost?
wallet, which I don't have
Uh,
on me. Um, but yeah, they had vintage Pinocchio pictures on the wall, which is pretty cool. But
at
yeah,
the end of
so
this episode, you should like put lettering in advising, give them a
yeah.
shout out. Go visit.
But yeah, the tiramisu. So they make it every day, fresh daily. They make it in batch, and then they put it in the bowls, and then they put it into a little refrigerator. It was fantastic. I think it's slightly different recipe than I was expecting. I think she said it was like a Venetian recipe or something.
Yeah,
But it was the topping, the cream, I guess, was more of like a pudding. It was a little bit thicker and it had a little bit of a better vanilla flavor to it.
that sounds
And
good.
then it had the like Ladyfinger coffee
Yeah,
base. And it was fantastic. Like I think you would really like it, but it was slightly different than the very light and fluffy, like
right.
rectangular slice of tiramisu that you would
Mass produced.
expect. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it was delicious. But yeah, I highly recommend a food tour in Rome. Like you get to experience a lot of different
But
um
you also ate some street food. I know you had some great pasta out of
yeah
just a closet kind of place with
yeah
no
yeah
seating.
posted about
So,
it on our Facebook page. Yeah,
oh,
they
okay,
this pasta restaurant near the Spanish Steps, actually right off the piazza there, is this to go only pasta eatery. So they give it to you in a to go container. They only serve two types of pasta a day. They hand make it. They vary which one that is they're serving every day, so it's not the same every day. But only two types of pasta. It was €4.50 for a good portion.
what a
It was
bargain!
delicious.
That is a
Yeah, it was a
bargain.
great bargain. And yeah, it's super cool. You just go in there. The dude's making the pasta in the back, and another dude's serving it, and that's it. There's no
Yeah,
seats. You have to take it to go. You can't sit outside. Like you have to go and eat it somewhere else.
yeah.
So it's kind of cool. Um, but yeah, I mean the Italian food in general and in Rome is so incredible. It's one of the pinnacles of food in the world, right?
Well,
There's a few countries
Italy
that
in general, but Rome. I mean, it's the heart of so much. The royal. I
yeah.
mean, the Roman
Well,
Empire,
it's the heart of Italy,
antiquities.
which
Yeah,
Italy as a whole is just like got a incredible food culture, and for it being the
right.
capital of Rome, it's going to get all the different flavors from around the country into
So
this area.
before we close on your Rome visit, a couple of things I think you pointed out previously that you haven't shared yet. You are kind of spoiled with Vienna. Your
Yep.
overall thoughts of Rome as far as
Yeah. So the non-touristy thoughts of Rome. Yeah. So I'll start with that one. As someone living in Austria, and I visit Vienna a lot and family in Vienna, that was the first major city in Europe I saw. Um, it spoils you because Vienna is very clean and it's very well put together and it's very organized and it's just they do everything right and then it makes them the most livable
the
city
the
in
one
the
thing that
world.
has changed, yeah, it is considered one of the most livable cities, one of the most walkable cities. When I was a kid, Vienna had no graffiti. Every city in Europe, quite frankly, globally now has graffiti. So in modern times, I was kind of shocked at the amount of graffiti in
But
Vienna.
it's
But
normal.
it's a clean city. I don't think there's any neighborhood I feel unsafe in.
No, not a single one.
So you can't say that
At
about
least
too
for
many cities.
yeah, at least for us. And so yeah, it spoils you being in Vienna. Rome, complete opposite. It's filthy. There's poop on the streets. There's graffiti everywhere. I mean, I think it's part of like the look of Rome, though, that like every building needs a repaint. But like that's just Rome. Like that's how Rome is.
They need pressure washers
Yeah, like
and some rain.
and yeah, and there's like trash everywhere. But it's just kind of
But it's not a
that's
major
Rome.
critique because being from the
No, no, no.
states, it's we have San Francisco, New York, Seattle,
I mean,
that
it's
are
they're.
Detroit.
I'll be honest. They are comparable. Like it is comparable to Rome.
Yeah.
And I didn't go to like the outskirts, but like when I was on like the train to the airport, you could tell it's pretty dirty and dingy in a lot of these places.
Yeah.
Like there's some
Well, and
not
that's the
great
other thing I want you
area.
to just briefly talk about before we close is the airport is not really in Rome or on the it's
It's
on
a
the
30
coast
minute
basically.
train
It's
ride.
a okay,
Yeah.
so it's a 30-minute train ride. That's also the port for a lot of cruise ships. So the airport decent
Yeah, it's fine. It's nothing no really
and
special.
and transportation around Rome.
Not great. It's mostly walking. Because the city's an ancient city, you can't really dig a lot of tunnels underneath.
There's no
So they
subway.
have well, no, there is a metro. They have like I think three
Two
or four
lines.
metro
Oh,
lines.
okay.
But they don't cover a lot. They have some tram lines, but again, they don't cover a lot, like above ground trains. But again, they don't cover a lot because the streets are old and varying
Yeah.
differences. Primary is buses. There's buses everywhere, but taxis and walking, like those are
Was
the
there
two.
Uber?
No, illegal in Rome.
Oh, really?
Yeah, illegal in Rome.
So it's
Um,
cabbies. It's the mafia,
yeah, and
man.
so I actually talked to a cabbie about that. He had mentioned that. Um, and speaking of like transportation, this was another point I wanted to bring up. Vehicles in Rome. So there are two things that I'd been meaning to mention this to you. So Fiat, right? You would expect the Fiat and
Fix
the
it again,
Fiat,
Tony.
but you would expect the Fiat 500 to be the dominant small car in Rome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What was
not
it?
even close. Not even close.
Let me try and think. Seat,
Nope.
Renault, Renault,
Nope.
Volkswagen.
No.
Not a Yugo or
Not a
Toyota.
Yugo. No. No.
I don't know. What's left?
I'll give you a hint. It's a
Ford
Mercedes
Fiesta.
product. It's a Mercedes product.
Oh, the little micro car, the golf cart that you
The
can
smart
lift.
car.
Smart. Oh, I hate those.
The dominant car in Rome, and I was blown away by how many there were.
I don't know if I'd be
They're
blown disappointed, but I guess if you're to me,
they're
that's been a
different.
car that
They're
is always a
so,
waste.
so you know the old smart car that was just like bad. I the newer ones they have there not super bad. They're still the same shape and size, but
So
they're much
basically, 3 or 4
better.
drunk guys coming out of a bar can still lift it up and put it on a
Yeah,
sidewalk.
yeah.
Okay.
And so the other thing about the cars in Rome, it's more about the parking in Rome.
Yeah.
Um, Parking, it's easier to say where you can't park than where you can park
Yeah.
because I saw people park everywhere. So like large corners where you're turning in that like
Yeah.
has
Like
like
a nice
has like
rounded
a
corner.
center has like a area where you don't drive on or something. Like people park in the area or
Yeah.
like on a roundabout in the area where you don't go in the roundabout. People park in that area. Like
Yeah.
they'll park just in the middle of the road because it's not where the cars drive through, but it's just the middle of the road. They park on where garages are on buildings because no one
Yeah.
drives in the garage. They just park in front of it. They park in front of alleyways. They park double parked everywhere. I don't even know how they determine where to double
Well,
park.
I will say I've driven in
Blown
some
away.
major cities in Europe. Paris, Vienna, Zurich. The worst, and I won't drive in southern Italy anymore at all. Rome, I've never driven in and don't want to.
I
But
would never do
but
that.
driving through Florence, Florence was probably one of the worst, and that's not even that congested. But I remember parking there, and then I gave up and went to a parking garage and gave the keys to this kid, and he didn't dent the car, but there were not even an inch, quarter of an inch between the other cars. I mean, they wedged him in, and
Yeah.
I just had to leave. I couldn't take it.
But yeah, I mean it's crazy. Like coming from like America where there's signs everywhere where you're restricted and you can and can't park and there's
Yeah,
dedicated parking spaces, but the cars are also huge. Like there's so many like there's the small cars you can just back them into the parallel parking instead of parallel
yeah,
parking. They just like pull straight into the spot.
yeah,
Like
because they're
it's
basically
just
a
they're small
cube.
enough. And
So
just
you
like
didn't see a Ford F-250 diesel.
no, I didn't see any big cars. Like not a single big car anywhere. Even the buses, they had micro buses in some of the areas of town.
What about the
Um,
gem, the emblem of automotive technology? Did you see a Ferrari?
only in a dealership. So I saw a Ferrari dealership. They had
Yeah, you took
a
pictures of it.
Testarossa,
Yeah,
yeah, and a like a the modern. I can't remember what the current
yeah, it's got that
modern
two tone with the blue on
primary.
red. Yeah,
But the primary Ferrari sports car right now, and then they had a Testarossa and Ferrari Red. Those are the only two Ferraris I saw. I saw one Lamborghini, and then I saw mini Porsches.
oh, you did driving
Yeah, I
around,
saw.
so
Yeah,
that would
well,
be a big
parked
car
and
there.
driving. Yeah,
Okay.
but only one Lamborghini, and no Ferraris the entire time I was there, which makes a lot of sense. Like every car I saw there was damaged. It's just,
What
it
was the
just looks
price
like
of gas per liter? Did you look or see it anywhere?
180. I saw a couple
Not bad.
places. Not
That's
bad, yeah. I mean that's under $8 a gallon, which for the center of Rome,
that's pretty good.
yeah, is not bad. It's probably closer to $7 a gallon.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the center of Rome is not bad at all. I don't know if I shared it with you. I had a Tesla Model X as a taxi.
Oh,
So that
yeah.
was sorry, Model Y as a taxi, the smaller SUV. I had one of those as a taxi, and there were a significant number of taxis, Tesla taxis. The guy that was driving was very well dressed, had a dress watch on, like fancy, like he was looking pretty fly for a taxi driver,
Really?
and it was very appropriate for the car. He was driving a Tesla. He was just like very well dressed. And I just picked him up in like a taxi line, so it was nothing nowhere special.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you see
but
charging stations?
a couple, not many. I'm sure they have their ways of plugging them in, but and the other thing about like the transportation, scooters, and more scooters. If you can walk
Vespas.
somewhere, not even Vespas, but if you
Really?
can walk somewhere, there are um, um, scooters on the path. Like
Yeah.
if it's a walkable area for a
Scooters are there.
human, it's usually that means it's wide enough for a scooter, and so
Even
there'll
with
be
the
a scooter
cobblestone
driving through
and
there. Oh yeah,
yeah.
everywhere.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
crazy, and then especially with like delivery drivers nowadays and everything. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. Any other thoughts? Anything else you wanted
No,
to
so
ask
overall,
me?
two thumbs up for Rome.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those cities I think in the world that you have to visit. It's so there's so much
You
and there's so
left
much
with a
history.
warm heart for the people, the cuisine, the culture of Italy and Rome.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
it's definitely worth visiting. there's attractions everywhere. You can't do it all for sure in one trip. I was there for 5 days, 4 nights, and didn't do everything.
And your mom and I will be there this summer for a short time. But were the Chinese there?
Yeah,
Tourists?
every
Okay.
tourist group is there. Not in huge numbers. So this is something I talked about, like the hotel and a little bit. The peak travel in Rome is actually the spring time.
Yeah.
So March and April is the spring because it gets too hot in June and July. So you think
Yeah.
it's June and July? It's not. It's March and April,
Well, June, July, I
and
mean, that's really the American travel season. And
yeah,
in Europe, that's when, like, our family leaves Vienna. So a lot of people leave their towns they live in during that summer season, go somewhere else that's cooler.
yeah. But
Uh,
yeah, definitely a great visit, and yeah, I mean, it's Rome. It's worth going. It's one of the cities in the world that is, kind of a top place in the world to see
and
because
if
it
you're
has
Catholic, you got to make the
so much.
pilgrimage to the Vatican at least,
Yeah,
get the
yeah.
blessing,
Two
the Holy
countries in
See.
one when you go to Rome.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, with
Uh,
that, I think it's what any final thoughts.
no, glad you had a great trip. I look forward to visiting there this summer. And with that, ciao, baby.
Yep, one that here for I believe is episode 23. It may not be the I guess it turned into the Roma episode.
Yeah.
So we'll sign off from here. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform. That's probably where you're listening to us now. Check us out on our YouTube. You can see a video and sometimes some
Ken,
video
if you have
showing of
questions about
some
any
of the stuff we're
trips or
looking at.
want advice, DM Carson or myself. So
But yeah, leave a comment on one of the YouTube videos. We'll be sure to get back to you, and yeah, follow us on our Facebook at Wits End or our TikTok as well. So that
great.
will sign off. Say ciao,
Ciao.
goodbye,
Choose.
or choose.
Yeah.
See you
Till next
next
time.
time.
Thanks.